What I want to talk about a little bit was innovation at Google. Google was viewed as a quite innovative company. I believe that's accurate. And I want to talk a little bit about how we achieve that innovation and cast it more in an economic context. So one thing, first topic is capital-labor ratios. So Google has a very, very powerful and highly standardized infrastructure. And this is very, very hard to do for a technological company. Why? Because lots of companies grow by acquisition. When you grow by acquisition, you get the data structure, the database of the acquired entity, and so you end up with what's known as data silos. So all over, you look at any large company, they'll have many different ways of storing data, many different protocols, many different schema. There's somebody in charge of each of these different databases, and to get anything done, you have to go get their permission to do it, and that serves as something of a barrier to innovation. In fact, I have to tell you a story. A few years ago, I had a student who got a summer internship at one of our competitors. He was going to be there for 3 months, and he had a nice data analysis project to do. So I saw him after he'd been there for 2 months. I said, "How's your project coming along?" He says, "I don't know. I haven't been able to get access to my data." And that is a perennial problem. Now, it requires a lot of discipline to get around it, because it means basically every time you do acquire some technology, you have to rewrite it to fit in with the existing infrastructure. So when we acquired DoubleClick a few years ago, we spent over a year actually rewriting the entire software base to Google standards so that it would fit into the existing infrastructure framework. Now, the advantage of that is it gives you huge flexibility, because you can take an engineer who's working on any project, move them to another project in some completely different part of the company, and they can be up and running within a week, because it's the same coding conventions, it's the same database schema, it's the same technology across the board, so you have huge flexibility in doing this kind of thing. And you can exploit a kind of combinatorial innovation. So in many, many cases, designing a new product or service is connecting together these components that have already been used and tested in some other part of the organization. So this is replaying within the organization a theme that people have discussed relative to the entire economy of general purpose technology and combinatorial innovation, which allows for a very rapid pace of technological progress. Another thing that comes out of this kind of infrastructure standardization is the fact that small teams can accomplish a huge amount. So who out here uses Google Scholar? Do we have any Google Scholar users? Yes. Well, many people who use Google Scholar. Google Scholar was built by one person over a 6-month period in his spare time. And during the last month before deployment, he got an intern in to sort of help him with some of the final details. So I asked him, how could you do this? How could one person build this incredible product? And he said, it's because I had this fantastic infrastructure to work with. So once you have that capability in a way that can be used across teams and across products, you can do a lot of innovation just by this combining and recombining the existing resources. So when we build a product, there's a certain number of services that come along with it, both internal and external. And ideally, I won't say this happens in every case, but ideally, there'll be a dashboard construction kit. So all of the important metrics from your project will be integrated in a dashboard, so you can look at real-time measures of what's happening. There'll be potentially an experimental interface, so you can vary parameters of the system for different users, for different cookies, for different geos, et cetera, and look at what the response will be to those treatment control experiments. And ideally, for advanced systems, as you've learned a lot about them, you can build a simulation model that allows you to simulate what would happen if you had different changes. So having those components available makes it very much easier to innovate. Second thing is, because a very small team, and I mentioned a one-person team, which is about as small as you can get, but there would be 4, 5, maybe 10-person teams. Because these very small teams can accomplish a lot, you end up with a lot of innovation percolating up from the bottom. Because all you have to do is round up a few other people and convince them that you've got something interesting to do, and you can build at least a prototype. And if you can build a prototype using the infrastructure, it's designed to be scalable, So scaling it up to work at full capacity is in fact, well, I was going to say relatively simple. It's not really simple, but at least you're a good part of the way there if you build the prototype, because you can scale things using the inherent scalability of the infrastructure that's been provided. So you don't need any approval to get started. You've got 20% time, typically. Sometimes that can become 30% time if you get some agreement along the way, but it means that you can try out different things very quickly. And then what does management do? Well, what management does is it provides the prioritization, the coordination, sort of duplication avoidance, and of course the resources needed to deploy the project at full speed. So you want to have, just as in the economy as a whole, you want to have a vibrant set of small and medium-sized enterprises, because that's where a lot of employment and innovation comes from at an economy-wide level. Within the organization, you want these small and medium-sized teams that can actually create new and innovative products without necessarily getting approval from above. At some stage you have to get the approval, but at least you have proof of concept by the time you seek that. Now, another thing that follows from this model is that Google is very, very good at incremental innovation. So I see a few gray hairs in the audience. Does anybody remember what Kaizen means? Kaizen? Yes, a few people here. So back in the 80s, well, remember we had this threat from the Japanese, and we're worried that the Japanese were going to outproduce the U.S. In fact, there's a story from those times where they had a Japanese executive, a French executive, and an American executive who were captured by terrorists. And they were sentenced to death by firing squad the next morning, but they granted them one last request. So the Frenchman says, I want a cigarette and a glass of cognac. And the Japanese said, I want to deliver a lecture on the Japanese system of manufacture. And the American says, I want to be shot first. I can't stand to hear another lecture on the Japanese system of manufacture.